Good morning. We have some really exciting news today. Joe Biden is about to announce that there is new hope for both Dreamers and the undocumented spouses of Americans here in the U.S. What he is planning to say is that there is a new pathway to citizenship that does not involve for these undocumented spouses leaving the country in order to first apply. So this is going to affect around 500,000 people. And this is how it's going to work. As long as you have lived in the United States for at least 10 years and you were married no later than yesterday, you can apply for this program. It will allow you to get a work visa for a period of 3 years, during which you have to apply for citizenship. Also, with respect to those Dreamers, those are the folks who came to the U.S. when they were young and are still under the age of 21 but are undocumented. They are also going to have an easier time now finding work. And just to make it clear, Biden is planning to do this by executive action, which just invites the crazy Republicans to bring a lawsuit right before election time, making folks angrier and reminding them that the Republicans do not stand for freedom. They do not stand for diversity. They stand for shutting everything down. And they're kind of idiots because our economy always depends upon immigrants coming to the United States. And we are a nation of immigrants. Okay, there's more Freedom Summer to talk about. Speaking of amnesty, over in Maryland, the governor has announced that anyone who has a low-level cannabis conviction will have that automatically expunged. In other words, he is pardoning around 175 cannabis convictions. This affects around 100,000 people. This is the way to go. Some states allow you to apply for expungement, but that's a one-off basis, and you have to hire a lawyer, and it's a difficult and lengthy process. This will be automatic. It's a huge social and racial justice issue because having these convictions on your record affect folks. It widens the wealth gap between blacks and whites in the U.S. because, as we know, wealthy white kids and even middle class and poor white kids who get caught with cannabis, people look the other way. They grow up and then eventually it gets legalized and they go into that business. Meanwhile, folks with these records who are black teenagers grow up over the years and have had trouble finding employment. This is a huge win. It should have happened earlier, which brings me to another point, which is what is Congress doing? Even though there are 24 states that have legalized cannabis for recreational use for adults, and another, I think it's like a total of 38 who allow it for medicinal purposes, we still have the federal government who considers it, I think, a class 1 or class 1 controlled substance. This creates all kinds of problems for funding cannabis companies and also creates obviously problems for folks who have their record clear but still are unclear about what law applies when it comes to cannabis, now that it's still a federal offense. And then, of course, there are the enemies of freedom. This will not be a Freedom Summer. This is the evil Axis alliance. I'm sure you heard yesterday that Vladimir Putin, for the first time, I think 24 or 25 years, is going to meet with Kim Jong-un. I think I've decided to call this the Putin-Kim alliance. And this is a marriage made in hell. And isn't it interesting that these are two men who Donald Trump really loves? Anyway, they are getting into bed together, not literally, but figuratively, because they desperately need each other. North Korea needs food. Russia needs weapons because they're fighting this terrible war against Ukraine. So, let's keep our eye on that. I just hope they both implode. Am I allowed to say that? Implode doesn't mean anything other than lose power. Okay. Now it is time for Crazy Town. You know what I'm going to have to do for Crazy Town because I'm from Detroit and I'm moving back home. It is Donald Trump over the weekend visiting what he called a black church. I mean, the building normally houses a congregation that is predominantly African American, but when he went there to preach, the only black folks were a couple of them on stage, and everyone else in the crowd was pretty much white. So that was a facade and a charade. And what makes me so angry about this is I saw mainstream news media, cable news, still talking about it as if this was a normal meeting in front of a black congregation. Also, what he is trying to do is align himself, obviously, with the Black community in the Detroit area. And the person he has chosen to be kind of a surrogate for him is former mayor of Detroit, who was indicted and served time in prison. And wouldn't you know, he is one of the guys that Donald Trump pardoned while he was in office. So this is absolutely nuts. I want to double up here, though. You deserve a second scoop of Crazy Town because this is also Ice Cream Summer in honor of Joe Biden. The second scoop is Sinclair Broadcasting. Who is doubling down or double scooping on the fake news story that Joe Biden is wandering around and doesn't know what he's doing. We talked about this yesterday when it came to the air show in Germany, and the news media was called out after the RNC tried to push that story by cropping a video. Sinclair Broadcasting is going to keep at it, and I think you need to really watch out for that. My viewers come from all across the United States, and Sinclair is kind of like this spider web of broadcasting channels, and you might not even know they own your local news. So if you see your local news reporting out one of these bizarre and misguided and misleading stories that Joe Biden is wandering off or is hallucinating, and you also notice that they never say a word about Donald Trump that is negative, they always talk about his virility and his spontaneity, you pretty much need to stop watching that station immediately. Find something that is more neutral. Find, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. I'm not saying I always agree with everything every broadcaster or every cable mainstream news station says, but you really have to be aware of the ones that are in the tank and are pure propaganda for Donald Trump, the convicted felon. That's all I got for you today. I will see you tomorrow morning. And remember to subscribe to the Mary Trump Media channel on YouTube and to tell your friends about Morning Jen.